When I was young, I went to Sunday school, and I learned about God. Went every Sunday, went to church often.
I was raised in a church-going family, and we would go to church not every Sunday, but pretty regularly.
I grew up at a private school. I had always believed in Jesus and God, and in 4th grade I moved to a public school, and at this point I only really went to church on Christmas and Easter.
I didn't have any relationship with God in any way. I just knew about Him, and that's how it went for a number of years.
But growing up, I kind of always felt like there was something that I was missing, either something I was not being taught or something that I didn't know about.
I knew God was real, but I thought as long as I tried to be a good person, I would go to heaven.
Got out of the service in '71, and I knew some guys around the area here that had a band. They were just greatly talented. And they asked me to be a part of the band, and I thought this is the band I was going to make it in. Our band was, the kind of music we played was more at that time considered hard rock, and we played at the bigger Chicago bars, did the club scene a lot. And that kind of life lends itself to a lot of drinking, it was a big party for me, and there's drugs involved, a lot of drugs, and a lot of girls, a lot of women, and I thought I was going to get some satisfaction out of that.
But it wasn't until a few years later when I was out of college. I was working at a mortgage company, and I had been working there for about a year and a half, and I started working with 2 women that were Christ followers. And I didn't understand that at first, what that meant. I didn't even know at first that they were. I just knew there was something different about them. And I had actually been looking for a church to go to ever since I had been out of college, and I had tried a couple different churches and just didn't feel comfortable at any of them. I didn't feel that they were any different from what I had experienced growing up.
About a year and a half ago, my grandma had the idea that we could come to Christ Community Church, just check it out, and so I thought it was a good idea, so we started coming. I came every so often. Then the next summer I started coming a lot more consistently. I felt like everything in the services that was being talked about was really relating to my life, and I just really connected with it, and it made me feel like God was reaching out to me. Since I felt I was relating so well to the services, when fall came around I decided to check out Mosaic, and then I started going to house groups, and I felt like that was a really big point because I was learning about the Bible, and I realized how important that was because it was helping me to decide if this is really what I believed in and how I wanted to live my life.
I found a job with a restoration company, and one night this fella and I were doing some painting, and he had already taken me under his wing a little bit, and we were working a lot together, and during those times that we were working together he would drop the thought about God to me once in a while, talk about Jesus a little bit, and I still didn't have a clue, and I wasn't terribly interested. I wasn't offended, but I wasn't that interested. So this fellow Bob Snedeker and I were working late one evening, we're painting, and he brought it up again, and this time he asked me if I knew Jesus or not, and I said, no, I don't get the connection. I don't understand the thing between God and Jesus and the rest of the characters in the Bible. It's never made sense to me, and he explained it right then to me. It took him just a few minutes, and I got it. And I got it. For some reason, I just understood it, and it made perfect sense to me, and I got excited.
So I'd been attending Christ Community pretty regularly, and the Bible study I was doing with Andrea and my new group of friends, we had been studying for about a month and a half, and so a few weeks later was Good Friday, and I attended the Good Friday service here at Christ Community, and it was an amazing service. And I just remember thinking during the service, like I could hear the click in my head. You know, it was like, ding, you know, everything became clear at that moment. Greg was talking about a personal relationship with Christ, and I guess the whole impact of him dying on the cross and really what that represented in my life finally made everything else make sense.
At Mosaic, I heard about the fall retreat, and I wanted to go on this retreat because I wanted to get away and focus on the Bible and see if this is what I really believed in and if I wanted to live my life for God.
It's time. I got to make a decision. I called him up and I said, I got to come over. I got to talk to you right now. He said, come on over. So it's about midnight. I go over to his house. I said, I need to know the Lord. I need it right now. So we prayed, and that's the night I accepted Jesus, and that's when I got to know him.
I remember sitting in service, and I know it's Good Friday, but I remember being so happy and so joyful, you know, that this sacrifice was made for me, and finally understanding really what that meant. I mean, I had grown up knowing, you know, about his death and his resurrection and knowing all of these things, but I never understood them and the impact it had on me as a person, as a Christ follower. And as I was driving home that night, I'm driving down the drive of Christ Community, and I remember just praying to God, saying, I get it, I understand what it means to be a Christ follower, what it means to accept the sacrifice that Jesus made for me. And that night I became a Christ follower, and that was 11 years ago, this Good Friday. And it's just, you know, my life obviously has not been the same since that night.
And since I felt God and the Holy Spirit like with me in the chapel, I felt like it was the perfect time to do it, and so I did. And after, like, the moment I did, after I had gotten everything off my chest, and I felt such a peace that, like, I never felt before, and it's a great feeling, just like everything was lifted off me. And once I felt that peace, I knew I wanted to live my life for God. And it wasn't only peace, there was a happiness, like a joy that I felt. I don't feel the negativity in my life anymore because I know God is always going to be there for me and love me and be consistent, and He has a plan for my life.
My life it's still totally imperfect, but I'm deeply loved, I'm forgiven. And every day there's something new to work on. And that's going to be ongoing, I'm sure. But I know that I'm forgiven, I know I'm going to heaven, and I know there's a God that loves me in spite of myself.